What's up, everybody? We have made it to Tuesday, so it's time to take a look at how the young players on this team are doing once again with Youth Watch Tuesday. And with the season going the way that it's going, this segment's becoming more important. Obviously, when you're watching and following a sports team, your main primary desire is going to be for them to be good right now. But when they're not, then the priority becomes, okay, are they going to be good later? One of those two things needs to be in effect, or else as a sports fan, you just kind of get depressed and sad and mad, and you want to do something else with your day. So the Seahawks don't look very good right now, but if their young talent continues to blossom, they can be good later. So let's see how these young players are doing. We're going to start with running backs as always. Of course, K9 didn't play this week, did he? So, we'll see if he comes back this year. At this point, I'm ready for anything. I think he could come back this week. I think he could come back next year. I think that he could come back for the last two games. I'm ready for anything with K9, honestly. And Charbonnet did a decent job filling in for him. He did have almost 100 yards on offense. He did score his first ever touchdown. There wasn't a lot of efficiency in his game. He had a 40-yard screen pass, and other than that, it was a lot of just kind of running into the line. And now he's hurt too, which is not what we want. But he played decent. He's doing what he can. He doesn't have the speed of a K9 to get it to the edge, but that's not what we could have reasonably expected to get when we drafted him. So yeah, pretty good stuff there too. And he's now at 500 yards of offense, which is, I think, about what we expected when we drafted him. I think that if you're getting 500 yards from scrimmage from your second round rookie, you did all right. And I know there's a lot of consternation in this fan base about Charbonnet. Should we have drafted him? Shouldn't we have drafted him? It was a bad pick. It was a terrible pick. I hate this pick. A lot of people, even though they know he's a good player, hate this pick because, oh, it's a running back. We already had a running back. We didn't need another one. When you take a BPA approach and you don't worry so much about following rules beyond just trying to get the best player at every pick, you're not always going to nail it, but a vast majority of the time you're going to at least come away with a good player, and I think that's what's happened here with Charbonnet. He is a good player. Is he the best player we could have gotten at that spot? Probably not, but let's focus on good. Like, if you're going to sit there and try to nitpick at every pick the team has made and be like, oh, this pick, this was a 9.5 out of 10, but this pick would have been a 10 out of 10, you're wasting your time. Let's just focus on getting picks that are good. The Colliers, the Eskridges, those guys, yeah, those guys are going to ruin your team. Charbonnets, they're going to be a part of the positive. They're going to be a part of positive stuff just fine. Okay, wide receivers. JSN had a pretty decent game. I know he had a drop, but the drop did not count because he was interfered with. So that obviously muted things just a little bit, but he was still productive. He still had over 60 yards. Still showed his value. Still showed what he's going to be in the NFL. And I think that there's a lot of excitement starting to build around JSN because it took a while for things to get going, but things are going now. His PFF grade went up. He was good. He caught, I think, at least a couple of third down conversions. And we're starting to see the player that we thought we were going to get all along. And maybe it wasn't reasonable for us to expect him to just hit the ground running when he's so young and he missed a lot of training camp and some of the preseason, but it seems like he's on his way now. And for the first time this year, I don't mind us going 3 receiver sets all game because it actually worked. Jake Bobo had 1 catch for 6 yards. It was one of them bubble screens. Not much to say. He didn't play that much. He's just doing Jake Bobo things. Still very, very good value. He was a UDFA. Whatever you get out of him is just nice. And it looks like he's going to end up with maybe about 200 yards as a UDFA as a rookie on a relatively stacked wide receiver core, by the way. Like the Seahawks wide receiver position is pretty dang good, and Bobo's still finding little ways to help. Okay. Charles Cross had a not so great game against Dallas. PFF didn't hate it the way that a lot of people seem to. A lot of people came out of that game thinking that Cross played awful. and PFF didn't agree. They docked him a couple of points, but overall he's still making progress over last year. He's still showing that he's developing towards being a franchise left tackle. And that is one of the most important things happening to this team right now. If Charles Cross becomes a franchise caliber left tackle over the next couple years, everything else that we do is going to be much easier. Now, his overall performance did drop a little bit in this game. He did give up 4 pressures, and he did obviously have some run blocking issues as well. There was a 4th down that he got beat on late in that game that ended up being a big deal. But 4 pressures when you're going up against the likes of Parsons and Lawrence, is not really anything I'm going to be upset about. That's pretty solid. That's pretty good. I'm willing to live with that pretty happily from Cross. Abe Lucas, first action back in a while. He played okay, I guess, all things considered. Like, if we're being straight honest, he played bad, but I don't think anybody's going to grill him too much about it when it's his first game back after 3 months. It wasn't terrible. He did give up 3 pressures, but no sacks. Obviously, Gino did not get sacked once. No penalties. So we'll see where this goes, but Abe Lucas was fine. Bradford was the only other guy who played who was young on the offensive line. He allowed 1 pressure, and his grades were basically stagnant. So decent, workable, functional. At this point, I think we're all pretty much on board with just letting Bradford be the guy at right guard, and next year he'll just inherit the starting job. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that now. He's playing well enough to where I'm not looking at him and going, we're losing something by not having Phil Haynes out there. Defensive line, Cam Young actually played a pretty good game. He was our highest graded defender by PFF in that Dallas game. He had 3 tackles in not a huge number of snaps. So Cam Young is actually finding ways to show that not only can he play, but he can play fairly effectively. And we need depth on the defensive line so bad, it actually kind of annoys me that Cam Young doesn't play more than he does. Like, Cam Young should be playing probably 20 snaps a game at this point just so we can give guys like Jarran Reed a blow. And there seems to be real resistance to letting him play any more than the bare minimum he has to. So I understand he's not a great player, but I don't think it's sustainable letting Jarran Reed play as much as he is right now. Jumping down to edge rusher, Mafe had a couple of tackles. He did get some pressures, but this was not a great game for him. His PFF grade fell just a little bit. I don't think he played poorly, to be clear. I do think that every player on defense kind of has to take the hit for what the defense did in that game. It was as embarrassing a performance as you're going to find. Like, you play like that in a game where your offense just explodes. But Mafe, if there's people to be excluded from criticism and blame, Mafe's one of them, with like Leonard Williams and maybe Bobby Wagner. So yeah, Mafe, his season has definitely slowed down a little bit, but I'm still mostly impressed. I think he played okay. Now, Derek Hall, on the other hand, he only played 4 snaps, so I got nothing to say here. And it's very weird that we consider him unplayable. I know he has problems, but you can't tell me that his problems are that much worse than Frank Clark's problems. Frank Clark can't do anything out there. Derek Hall might be able to do something. Okay, getting down to a cornerback here to wrap us up here. Both Woolen and Witherspoon had a lot of tackles in this game, and in this case, I don't really think that was a good thing because it was indicative of them giving up a lot of stuff. I just checked to be sure. They both had 8 tackles in this game, and while I don't think either played terrible, they both didn't really play good. Woolen's grade was and Witherspoon's grade was bad. Witherspoon's PFF grade fell 3 points from this game alone, I think. They both had at least one. Yeah, Woolen had 2 pass deflections, and Witherspoon had 1, so plays on the ball are appreciated, but this was definitely a game to forget for both those guys. Now, I know Woolen's getting docked for BS calls, but there were some good calls on him too. So I'm not really sitting here thinking like, oh, the only problem is the referees here. He had some bad moments in that game, and I think his confidence is kind of hurting right now. Witherspoon, I'm not that worried about. This was his worst game of his season, and it was still okay. It wasn't like terrible. Maybe it was below average, if we're being honest. It wasn't good. But when you're a rookie and you're that good at your worst, then you're good to go. We got nothing to worry about there. So Witherspoon, Woolen, better days are ahead. But with Woolen, that game, there was definitely a point where I wondered, is his confidence hurting a little bit here? Nothing from safety, and that's it for the video. So the young players continue to grind. We're seeing some promising things. We're seeing some important things as well. And even though the team is now winning right now, there continues to be some reason, some call for optimism about the long term. But again, I gotta wonder, do we have a coach who's going to be able to get the most out of these guys when they are in their prime? Because in the next couple years, a lot of these guys might be elite players, some of the best players at their positions in the league. And when that comes, when that happens, this team needs to accomplish big things. Not little things, big things. All right. See you guys later. More videos coming. Go Hawks. And yeah, young players continue to shine for the most part.